Kenny here with Gardening Simplified. It's March 6th, and I've come across some more potatoes. Now, if you've seen from my earlier video 2-3 days ago, I had already planted some potatoes, but I got to looking at my second crop of potatoes that we had stored away, and I noticed that a lot of them were growing. So what I decided to do was go ahead and make a video on this. And at the end of it, I've got a helpful hint for those of you that are way up north that maybe you got a shorter growing season, but you want to extend it and get those potatoes growing sooner. So I've got a method that'll help you. I've already planted my potatoes, and I'm looking through my second crop of potatoes from last year, and as you can see, a lot of these are chitting. Now they still could be eaten. There's not anything wrong with that as far as a potato sprouting a little bit and eating it. But I got to thinking, why don't I go ahead and plant some more potatoes? I don't know exactly where I'm going to do this. As you can see, I store these with straw. What that does is it keeps them all pretty much separated. It gives some airflow, so you don't have to worry about them packed in there and in stagnant air and stuff. But as we go down through here and check these potatoes, we're seeing an awful lot of them that are really wanting to grow. And you know, I don't want to deprive my potatoes from continuing to come along. Some of them are wanting to grow more than others. But anyway, I'm just going to sort through here and see what all's available, and I might just figure me out a new space for planting. I figure I'm let these chit just a little bit more. They're not going to have a problem if they're planted late. We try to plant ours around the middle of February. That way we have our potatoes pretty early. And what I might do with these are just plant some whole potatoes, so I have a lot of what we call in the South new potatoes. A lot of times you can just go under a plant when they first start producing and scratch around and pull what they call steal some potatoes. You just scratch around there and see if you can find some small potatoes, and we'll take and now we like them with green beans and new potatoes, or just new potatoes cooked up. We'll just take a brush and clean them up good. Some of that tender skin will brush right off too, and boil them up whole. It's really a treat. But it looks like we've got a fairly good bit of potatoes here. But I'll continue to go through these. And these potatoes here, I did just enough to fill a 10 by 20 seed tray. And they're chitting good. I'm not quite ready to put out these potatoes, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to just set these over here on my rack by the window, let them get sunlight, which will really encourage them to increase their chits on the ones that don't have many, and the ones that have some, they'll probably put out some more. but that'll take care of that. Now I have my, which those are the Yukon Golds. These here are my red potatoes. I think these are Pontiac Reds. And you can see they're starting to chit too. Now I probably got quite a few more of these. It might be time to cook up a bunch of potatoes. Whether, I don't know that we'll can them, but we might. We might just try our hand at dehydrating them and see how that works out. But anyway, I'm going to go through here, and I know I've got quite a bit of these. But as you can see, potatoes, they know when it's time. Now these would have been a little more dormant if they were kept in a considerably cooler temperature. Now, when I save one like this, now you can see where this was split. Now I won't plant this. I don't know if it was something that's genetic or diseased or something, but I won't take and plant that potato just for the fact of I don't want to risk that something's there. It's not like I have to have it. If you know, if we were in end times, these were the only potatoes that were still available, I might. Well, I probably would. But you can see some of these are chitting pretty good. Now, down here in the south, we don't, some of us use that word, but normally what we would say growing up on the farm and growing our potatoes, we would call these eyes. The eyes are growing, because we call them eyes because they kind of look like eyes, and on a lot of your potatoes, especially your russets, these, you can see the curvature and stuff, and so we call these eyes, and then we say it's growing eyes, which you know, most of us down here in the south, we don't have any sense anyway, so we probably would tend to talk funny. But it looks like I have a lot of seed potatoes, and what I'd say to that is, looks like I'm going to have way more potatoes than I need. There's another split one. Those will eat just fine, and you know, just like any other bruise or something on a potato, just cut that out. But I'm going to continue to go through here and do this. But I guess kind of what I want to show is that if you grow your own crops, and you don't have to buy seeds every year, as far as on a lot of these, like potatoes, a lot of your heirlooms and stuff, you just save your seed, and then you come back and plant it. When I planted last fall, if you go back or if you follow my channel, you'll know that these potatoes were grown from potatoes that I had saved. They were actually being saved for seed potatoes for this year, but the potato wants to grow. So whenever I started looking for seed potatoes to plant, and you can't find them for a second crop, I was watching Haas Tools, and I can't remember the guy's name. I should. Travis. Travis was talking about potatoes, and of course he knew the same thing. He couldn't find seed potatoes, so he looked at his, and so I looked at mine, and that's the way I got my potatoes for this crop. And as you can see, a lot of these they're ready to go. These things want to go in the ground, and for sure they will. And we'll do the same way this year. We might save a few more seed potatoes, so we make sure that we have a good amount for a second crop. But we won't have a problem for that second crop. And those of you up north, you don't know much about that second crop of potatoes. You might grow different varieties for early and mid and late, so you can get more potatoes during the year. But down here in the south, we have so much time that we can grow our early crop twice, you know, and so we can have that variety that we really enjoy for the early crop. We can have it a couple times a year. But anyway, I hope this video helps you when it comes to potatoes. And I got all these here out of there too. Now your straw, when you use it for a situation like this, you're probably going to use the same container the next year and everything else. That straw can be reused as long as you don't have any potatoes that at any areas that would have, you know, that showed rot or disease. Then you could just put that straw back in your, I use milk crates, which work great because they stack up. But you can just put that back in there, and then whenever you get ready to store your next ones, you can put them in those crates. Also, when you go to store your potatoes, you don't ever wash your potatoes. Now, a lot of the commercial growers, they wash them, but then they spray them with something to keep them from germinating. Because if you wash them, it's going to encourage them to start growing. So that's something to consider. If you're planning to start another crop or something, you might want to do that. Yeah. Now, I normally keep my potatoes under a shelf. That was how we normally had been saving them. We just spread them out under a shelf. And these were some that had got slid back there. And of course, I have the grow light hooked up in my storage room, so they're getting a little bit of light. That's why they've got some green on them. Normally, you wouldn't see green on them. They would just really be pale. But you can see these potatoes are shriveled up. These eyes are long and everything. But there's nothing wrong with planting a potato like this. And like I say, this was my first crop last year. And it's just been sitting in there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and plant these. We'll set up whenever we plant these other ones, and we'll probably slice up a few of these when we get ready to plant them to show you how they grow when you cut them down to just a couple of eyes versus planting a whole potato. Because I know a lot of you've learned this over time, plant the whole potato. But this will let you see that when you plant a whole potato, you have so many more eyes growing from that one spot. It's like putting a whole lot of plants in tight together. So they don't have as much nutrients available for the individual plants, because each one of these eyes is actually a separate plant. And whenever you plant potatoes, you see that. You see multi-stems come up. And so that'll let you realize the difference. If you're wanting bigger potatoes, well, then you would plant one way. If you're wanting more new potatoes or smaller potatoes, then you would plant another way, because it really makes a difference on potato size. What I've got here, I've kind of marked off my row, so I've kind of got them set up to where I can put my trip lines in later. I just happened that I have plenty of tape, but I didn't have any starter valves for some reason, unless I misplaced them. But anyway, I'm going to plant these. These are the ones that are really gnarly. They're going to be at the first of this row, and then I'm going to go down and plant the whole potatoes, all these. And like I say, I'm going to plant these so they'll be smaller potatoes, and we'll see how this comes out. I've got most of these laid out on this row. I'm putting them about 12 to 14 inches apart. That's kind of close, especially for whole potatoes, but like I say, this is trying to grow small potatoes. So got them all watered in. Almost have 2 more double rows down to that flag. These are about 40, maybe just a little over 40 foot rows. Now, I know some of you that's up in the colder climates, you probably wishing you could start some potatoes right now so you have potatoes. Well, I've got a trick for you, and I'm fixing to show you. So let's get after it. Okay, as promised, I have this nice little trick here. We're just going to use some potting soil. Now this isn't pre-moistened. You can pre-moisten it if it's really dry and not going to soak up water. But we're going to take these ugly old potatoes here. We're just going to stick them down in here. Now I'm not going to try to bury these tops too deep, which they will be kind of deep in this pot. And without making too big a mess, I'm going to put a little potting soil on top. And if you're up north and you want your potatoes early, this is the way you do it. Steve on Seaside Allotment YouTube channel, he always, in his climate, they have a hard time getting tomatoes, or he ends up with a certain time in there where he doesn't have tomatoes. So what he does is he pots these tomatoes up, it puts them in a pot and lets them start growing. And then when the time comes, when it's warm enough, you can go ahead and you can dig you a bigger hole, set these a little deeper in the ground, and you'll have potatoes before anybody else. This isn't a complicated deal. There's nothing special about it. Put it by a window where it can get light. If you have warmer days, once it comes up, you can move them outside to where they get good light, just, you know, to keep them where they're kind of hardened off. And you'll end up with potatoes, and everyone around you will be wondering how come you have potatoes before anybody else. And like I say, it's not complicated. Now I'm just going to, I could put these out in the greenhouse, but it's actually going to be warmer in here. So until they start to come out of the ground, I'm just going to set them in a tray over by the window. And then when they do come up, they'll get a little light. Once mine come up, I'll move them outside because I don't have to worry about how cold it is. Like I say, if you do this, and I'm just showing you this because I don't ever have to worry in my climate to have them that quick. But anyway, I hope this helps you. I hope this gives you an idea to where you can do your gardening earlier. You don't have to wait on anybody else. If you can get some seed potatoes, you can go ahead and get some ready to go in the ground. And it doesn't take much. These are just reusable pots from the nursery. Usually they have plenty of extra, some of these landscape companies and small nurseries, because they buy a lot of their plants. They don't actually grow them there. So when they set them out, they have extra pots stacked up there that they have to get rid of. But anyway, if you want to see more of my videos, just hit that subscribe button, hit the bell so you'll be notified. Give this a big thumbs up and share it because that really helps my channel out. Happy gardening.